I've always had a camera. I've always had a camera. When I first came to Wyoming, I had a little Instamatic. I was a cowboy then, and I'd take this little Instamatic and I'd put it in my saddlebags. And who would ever thought in the old days of being a cowboy that it would go into being a carpenter for a while and actually building houses, and from there to photography, and then along the line going on all these trips, at first with horses and going into the mountains, leading pack trips. You didn't have to pay, you were working. You were actually getting paid to do all these trips. Can you imagine standing there in the dark behind your camera, already set up, and here comes the sun coming up and that pink light coming down on the Tetons, and you watching it come down, and you're taking your shots, and you know you have them, and they're the most glorious shots on the planet. I first came up to Wyoming in 1967. I heard about the Tetons, and I just wanted to see the Tetons. Be a cowboy. Wyoming sounded like a good place to be a cowboy. They had a cowboy on their license plate, so it seemed like a place to go. First job I had was at the Triangle X Ranch, and I was a dude wrangler. And right out the driveway from the Triangle X, when the road hit the highway, there's the Tetons, just sticking up. The Grand, the Middle, the South, all of the Tetons. So there I was. I came to Wyoming and I was a cowboy. Also, while I was down there on wrangling dudes, I was riding bulls and bareback horses. And I rode bulls and bareback horses for about 12 years. And I was pretty good at it, not too bad. I beat those boys, beat them a lot. The scene around the rodeo, you'd see the different cowboys coming in from the different ranches. All the dudes would be here or be up in the bleachers. And you never knew when your bull was going to be. They'd have them all in a pen, and they'd run them in, and the guys loading them would just load any ones they could get in. And so finally, here'd come this bull. He'd be in there, and they'd pull that gate down, and it's your time. You got to do it. You jump up on your rope, and then it's time. You nod, and out you go. This bull would explode out into that arena. Sometimes they'd go straight, jumping up. Sometimes they'd come around back in a circle, and it went both ways. Sometimes you'd win the world, you were the hero. Other times you'd get trapped down on the ground and almost get stepped on. And you could go either way.
In that long ago world of yesterday.
I won the bull ride in Jackson Hole, and I took that paycheck and I went down to Jack Dennis, and I bought a backpack, and I bought a sleeping bag, and I bought a stove, a little cook stove. And I loaded it all up and went on my first backpack trip on my feet instead of traveling on horses. And I went into a bay on Jackson Lake. And of course I had my camera. I had beautiful shots shooting across Jackson Lake. There would be the still lake in the evening. There'd be the geese flying over. You could hear the sandhill cranes. You could hear a loon call. And just a wild call of the loon coming across that lake is just absolutely wild. And then the sandhill cranes would screech with that wild, wild, wild sound. And I just absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so then I really got this urge to go to the mountains. And I've always had a camera. I wasn't quite a very good photographer yet. I didn't understand that you had to shoot transparency film when you were professional. Well, I wasn't a professional yet, but I had this knack for photography, and I just absolutely loved the mountains. Where else could you have these glorious summer trips? You know, you can take that tram at Teton Village, you can go up that tram and gain 4,000 feet or so. You can walk off that tram, and in 10 minutes, you're out there. You're away from the people. You've got this Teton Crest Trail out ahead of you. One of the most glorious trips in the lower 48. You can get in your car, drive down there to the Wind Rivers outside of Pinedale, and like I said, you could be down there 3.5 hours. You could be walking up the trail. That night, be camping at a lake. The next day, you could be up at the timberline, right underneath the Continental Divide up there in the granite. and then take pictures morning and evening. Every morning and every evening, it's just the sunrises and the sunsets, especially in the winds here in the Tetons, are when you get those really good pictures. And I just did this, and I did this for years and years and years. This is one of the favorite things I like to do, is be on location. I'll be on location before the sun comes up. I'll be out there in the dark. I probably found a location the day before, and I'm waiting for the sun to hit the mountains. And I'll be sitting there, the sky will lighten, and then the sun will finally hit the Tetons. They'll be all pink. There'll be just a glorious color to them. And then I would shoot this till the sun would come all the way to the fence, and maybe take 8 or 12 exposures of this scene. All the time you're getting colder and colder. The cold starts out around the extremities, and it just keeps working into your body. It starts out on the end of your fingertips and just keeps getting in to you and slowing you down, and look at the results. Here comes the snow. It's wintertime, and most people are done. They've hung it up, but we started doing winter trips. We discovered some hot springs up in Yellowstone, and so we'd go on these adventures up in the Yellowstone. Sure, it's cold. It could be 20 below, 10 below, but with modern clothes, good down jackets, and if you're a photographer, how are you going to beat it? This, to me, really means a lot. We did a ski trip across Yellowstone in the winter. You don't see very much snow here because it is down in this low grassy place, and all the thermal areas have melted back the snow. But we had done a trip where we started at the South Gate, and we skied from the South Gate all the way to Old Faithful. It was 9 days, so this is day number 9. So I got up that morning, went out with my camera, was able to take this just really beautiful shot of Yellowstone after skiing all the way from the South Gate, up over the Pitchstone, down into the Beckler, into the Shoshone Geyser Basin, up over Grants Pass, past Lone Star Geyser, and down the Old Faithful. So what a beautiful end of a trip. I got out of the dude business and became a carpenter. And I was a carpenter for a good many years. So I started my own business as Oxbow Construction. I probably built 12, 15 custom houses here in the Jackson Hole area. And about that time my photography started taking off. I started selling photographs, and I started getting good jobs, photography jobs, and I'd have to take some time off of work. And the more the photography flourished, the more time I was taking off of work, to where finally it came to a point where I couldn't do both. I had to be a photographer, or I had to be a carpenter. So which would you do? That wasn't too hard a decision. This is one of my favorite places, the Old Patriarch. It's a way old tree. It's stately, and this is why I went down there. That morning, I got up and looked at the sky, and it turned out to be the 100-year sky. You won't see this again very often, hardly, if ever. And I knew that it was going to be good. And this particular shot needs a good sky to carry it. And here's that old stately limber pine, the Old Patriarch tree, and here's the Tetons, and it's just a perfect little setting. The sun was already up, so I was actually late for work, but I got there early enough in time to get this great shot. It's always been the call of Wyoming. It's always been the call of the mountains. A good part of Wyoming aren't mountains, but it has a beauty to it. But especially in this part of the country, it has held, and it has held steady. You don't have to go up to Alaska. You don't have to go up to the Northwest Territories. You don't have to go to another country, across the seas, over to Nepal and the Himalaya. It's right here in Wyoming. It's the cowboy state. You can see the old bucking horse. You can see old Stub Farlow riding midnight on that Wyoming license plate. It brings you back to those old years. And I believe I was there. I was there riding bulls, bareback horses, and now it's this modern 2009, and it's just getting started. We're going to do trips yet. We're going to do trips yet that'll knock your hat off. We're going to do glorious trips, 9 and 12-day trips. I feel in my heart that I haven't even taken my best shot yet. I think I've matured. I've learned the area. I believe that the best shots are still yet to come. And by God's grace, I'll be standing there when the sun comes up. That pink light hits the mountains, and it'll be captured. And you'll be looking at it. I'll make sure of that. I'm done, Arden. I'm done.
Silver buckles for the winners. Too much whiskey, win or lose. Say a prayer for me, darling. This old cowboy